So the next thing that I alluded to a little bit earlier is the 80-20 content marketing rule. So when I said earlier, when we post all this content, we're not necessarily posting everything that just says, come to our church, Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Come to our church, Saturday morning, 11 a.m., right? We want to share that a little bit, and you can't see this, but 20% promotional, 80% interesting and shareable. So only about 1 in 5 of our posts and content should be promotional. The question that I get very often is, how can we successfully promote our events at our church? And we'll get to that in just a minute. But that shouldn't be overall our content, because we want to invite people in. We want to minister to people where they are. There are plenty of ideas. We can post things about prayer requests. We can post about scriptures. We can post things about meet the team. We can highlight some of our volunteers or some of our church members and be personal. We can share photo albums from events. All these types of things to expound on the mission that drives our strategy. But all of our content should not be promotional. It's kind of like when you're watching something and you see a commercial. It's annoying, right? Like, we'll usually fast forward through it or mute it or something. Like, you don't really want to watch the commercials, but they're there, they're necessary, right? But I'm not saying that our event promotions are like commercials, but we want that to be minimal, because people know, they feel when they're being almost advertised to, and people resist that naturally. So we can have our event promotion, and there's a right way to do that, but it's not 100% of the content that we share. So these are some ideas that I just alluded to. We can post clips, quotes. We can use our sermons as content. If we do sermon series, we can post about that, which is a little bit promotional. We can post some inspirational content, quotes, Bible verses, photos from church life, stories. When I say remember the why, it's like the angle we talked about earlier. When we're writing stories, why was this event important? We want to share the mission behind whatever we're reporting on. We can spotlight our members or volunteers, spotlight staff in our church, and of course, event promotions, of course, can be included as well. When we talk about creating these different types of content, it's important to remember as well that content must be mobile friendly. A few years ago, the statistic came out that people access the web more than 50% of the time on mobile devices. And here it says that nearly half, at the very end here, of social media users prefer to access social media on mobile apps. So when we consider the ways that our audience is interacting with this content, whether it's a Bible verse or an album or a live stream or whatever it may be, we have to think very technically in terms of the content on how people are accessing it. I think that's one reason that Instagram TV has been used quite a bit, and it's really picked up since it's been introduced, is because they've really used that vertical video thing that a lot of people really don't like. We always say shoot videos in landscape, but they've used that vertical video platform and made a place for it on Instagram, and people have begun to incorporate that. So you have to think, and they did that because people use Instagram only on mobile devices for the most part. And so they thought, well, people are on mobile devices, let's use this video. When you use landscape video, it actually doesn't look good on Instagram for the most part. So they've thought about the fact that the context in which people are viewing their content has been utilized, and they've made that as effective as it can be. So think about the content that you're posting and how people will be accessing it. So one of the ways to do that is that when people are looking at content on a mobile device, they're scrolling like really quickly. So if you can think about how to make your content as visual and attractive as possible so that people will stop and maybe think about what is this, and it'll catch their eye, right? So think about the way that people are interacting with your content and how to make it as effective as it can be in that context. So we're going to talk just for a minute about promoting church events, which I've been asked this question quite a bit, and I know many of us do want to get people to our church. That's our end goal. We want to interact with people in the church after we've made a relationship with them online. So I watched a video that was really interesting recently, and it informed what I'm going to share. This is a little bit difficult to read, so the most important word here I'm going to read for each of these. So the first one is awareness. The next one should say anticipation. So the first one is awareness. So first you just want to post maybe, let's say 1 to 2 months before your event. Just post maybe something quick on Facebook, one thing on Instagram. At this point, we don't necessarily need to flood all the platforms, but a couple of announcements from the pulpit, a couple of announcements maybe in your bulletin, a couple of announcements on the website, maybe one in Facebook. Just sprinkle a little bit of promotions in a few places that you have, so that when people hear, hey, we have this event coming up, like for this, let's say, oh, we have a workshop coming up in May. Oh, I think I've heard about that. And so people can start to build awareness of your event. And then a few weeks before the event, you want to create some anticipation. So you want people to know, oh, this is coming up. I wonder how they're preparing. You can share some live streams from behind the scenes. Hey, we just got some of these things in that we're going to promote at the event, and we can share some of this stuff. One thing that's really helpful to talk about when you're talking about events is not necessarily the what of your event. What you're going to be doing is saying, well, let's say the example that was given that I watched was about a Christmas program. So we're going to have a Christmas program. There's going to be some really nice Christmas candles, and we're going to have some hymns, your favorite Christmas hymn, Silent Night, and all these things. That's really the what of what's being done. All of that is very important, so don't misunderstand that. But the why is something that we can even promote more. So for example, we can say, why should you come to this event? Well, the Christmas program can be a tradition every year with the family. Think about the hustle and bustle of the holidays. This is an opportunity for you to spend some family time and worship and think about the holidays that are coming up and the meaning behind them. So you can create that tradition aspect. So sharing the why of what makes this event important rather than the what is going to be really beneficial in people thinking about whether they want to come to your event or not. A couple days before the event, people are going to be thinking about, okay, I've had this event on my calendar. I don't know, this weekend's coming up. I got another invite to go to something else. I'm not sure if I want to go to this. The statistic I heard was that even up to 20% of people could be on the fence at this point about coming to the event. So a couple days before the event, you may think to yourself, well, for the last month or two, I've been posting about this like a lot. People should know. I think I'm going to go get ready for the event and do some logistics and just stop posting. But this is a really key opportunity because people are probably deciding if they really want to follow through with this event that they've put on their calendar. So as you're talking about the week or few days leading up to the event, you can share different things. Maybe if from past events you have testimonies from people who have come and said, this was an awesome time for my family. We've really enjoyed and been blessed by this as our tradition every year. And so you can share that and say, you can have this experience too this weekend if you guys come. So you can share those types of experiences just leading up a few days to the event. So as we talk about the idea of why, that really applies to events because people want to know how this is going to enrich their experience and their life as they come. So we want to go a little bit away. Of course, we want to include the main details, but we want to go a little bit away from just focusing on the what, and this is what this event is. But we want to tell them why it's going to impact them, what they'll receive personally when they attend this event. At this time, we're going to offer a few content creation tools and ideas. We'll go through this section a little quickly, but when you think about the content that you want to create, when you think about how to share your why, when you've decided on your church's mission, and you've thought, I think we're going to post some sermon series images, we're going to post some quotes, maybe some Bible verses, we've got some events, you've got some ideas about what to post. These are just some technical tools that can actually help you create this content easily, whether you have design and imagery experience or not. You can still create some pretty nice images using some of these tools that we're going to share. You may have heard of Canva. They have a free and paid version, as most of these do, but often the free version is sufficient for your church and what you're going to be doing. So these, Canva and Over, are both apps that have templates for creating maybe flyers or Bible verse graphics or things like that. You can sign up for these and just create images using these templates, customize them according to your needs. Adobe Creative Cloud is the only one that is actually paid. That's for a little bit more experienced or knowledgeable. Adobe Creative Cloud has like InDesign, Photoshop. Of course, those apps are going to be helpful for creating images if you have them and if you're proficient in them. But for basics, Canva and Over are pretty helpful and beneficial. Over has a really cool mobile app that's very easy and friendly to use. So on the go, it's really quick to just create a nice image from there. When you're creating your images and you want to create, let's say you want to put a Bible verse John 3:16, and you want to share with people what God did. You want to put a nice image in the background that can really set the tone for the text that you're sharing. Pexels is a website that you can go to that actually, when you search, it brings in images from a bunch of different free, royalty-free websites, including Unsplash and Pixabay. Sometimes I go to Unsplash or Pixabay directly, but Pexels, when you search, has results from those websites as well, including a few others. This is really important because often we think, let's say I want a picture of a mountain in this quote I'm sharing or something, and I go on Google and I search nice mountain photo or something like that, and I find a really cool one on the Google search, and then pull that into the image, place it behind the text, and that's actually something that we're not going to want to do because that most often will violate copyright on the photos, and we may not have access to actually have the rights to use those photos if we just search on Google. So that's something we're not going to want to do. So that's why these websites are very beneficial, because they have high quality photos, but most importantly, they are able to be used commercially in any of your projects, and you have the access and commercial rights to use them. So this is why you want to go to these sites, and you can find videos on here as well for stock videos.
Just a quick comment to stock images. We actually had one of our churches that got sued by using an image that they found through Google Images, and ended up having to resolve it. $2,000 was the fine that they settled outside of court because they pulled something off of Google.
Yeah.
So copyright infringement is a big deal.
Yeah.
Be careful what you do when you don't use images that come from free stock sources.
Yeah, thank you, Anu, for sharing that. Another thing you can do, if you do want to search on Google, let's say none of these sites have something you like, you don't want to sign up for a stock website, we put in the program, we'll talk about resources later, there is a paid website that's specifically for Christian stock photos. It's called Lightstock. So that's pretty cool, but if you don't want to pay, these are some free general websites. Another thing you can do if you want to search on Google, there's a tab under Advanced Search when you go to Photos. It says, that's the words, it says Advanced Search, and you can click under the rights section, you can click that you want something you can use commercially, and then there's another checkbox you can click to use something commercially, and that you also have the rights to modify the photo if you want to do anything else. That pretty much you can do anything with that. But you can, so if you search on Google, it's okay, but you have to click that button under Advanced Search for stuff that's able to be used commercially. So yeah, that was super important. So if you also want to do, let's say you want to do a video, a short little, maybe 1-minute video with a couple photos or some footage from an event you guys did, and you want to share something that your church is doing, just a quick little video. Maybe you'll put some Bible text, like a few verses after another, in a little video people can watch. These are some websites to be able to find some stock music. Bensound, you can use it for free because you cite it at the bottom and say music found from Bensound. But YouTube and Facebook also have their own libraries that you can find some stock music to put in the background if you want to do a quick little short video on your social media channels as well. So these tools will help you. You can use these tools to create really quick, easy, attractive content. But never forget that great content is predicated on context. And what that means is that you can use all of these tools and make a really beautiful, pretty Facebook post, and it can have the relevant content and everything. But if you don't think about when and where you're posting it, your audience might not ever see it, because all of the social media platforms have their own algorithms. So we'll get to algorithms or analytics in a bit. But it's important to think about, maybe my audience, according to my analytics, is online a lot in the evenings. They don't tend to go online in the mornings. You can see that in the analytics. And so maybe you want to post in the evening. Maybe you have a better audience on Instagram versus on Facebook because they are more engaged and you can get a better reach that way. Think about the context in which you're posting your content. So rather than just posting it anytime, any place, or hiding it in the back page of your website or something, you want to think about the context of your content as well, because the content itself might be great, but the way or place in which it's posted and the engagement surrounding it might not allow it to actually get any traction. So you want to think about the context in which you're posting your stuff. So we'll talk about the management and maintenance of these profiles And we'll go into the context bit a little bit more. When you're thinking about building your stuff, building your social media presence ongoing, the first step is important to build a team. So one idea that I've heard is who within your church can be on your team, first of all, to help you create content, to help you manage this stuff, but also who in your church can you ask to like the stuff that you post? Because that will help your reach organically. So who can comment and share on your stuff? Who can you text and say, hey, we just posted something, can you share it? Can you engage with our stuff? You want your church to be involved as well. If your budget in your church doesn't allow for you to have a paid social media presence right now with ads and things like that, you can use this strategy. You can have people liking and sharing and engaging with your stuff, and that will help you get your stuff seen a little bit more. And the reason for that is because Facebook has algorithms that decide if your stuff is interesting or not. It decides whether your content is going to be interesting to your audience. So if it sees that people are liking and sharing this, it will say, well, this must be interesting. We'll put this in front of more people. So that's why this works, and it helps. It's not going to get it seen by thousands of people overnight, but it's going to help put it on a little bit more news feeds than it would have otherwise. So the more engagement and traction your posts get, the farther they'll go. One thing to tell people as well is if you're asking someone, hey, do you want to be part of our ministry team? Make sure to like our stuff and get involved with what we post. It's an opportunity to get involved in ministry because they're helping the message go farther by engaging with the posts. So that's something that we want to share as well. A couple tools in the technical side of this management aspect, when you're trying to schedule out and create this content strategy, we use Hootsuite and Asana to create our social media strategy. Google Sheets is also helpful. So what you can do is you can create a spreadsheet that says each day of the week, Sunday through Saturday, and you can say weekdays or weekends, like you can set it up and say, maybe on these days of the week, according to our analytics, we have the best or the highest number of people online, the best engagement on Mondays and Thursdays. And so you can say, well, we shouldn't miss a Monday or Thursday. We can post in between, but we'll always post on these days. You can kind of map it out, and we have a handout as well with a little bit of a schedule template for you guys. But you can map it out, like which days are we going to post, which type of content. And you can kind of think ahead that way, because one thing that we don't want to do with social media is to just kind of go day by day and think, well, today what are we going to post? And then the next day, today what are we going to post? Because the best social media strategies are consistent. And so when you think every week we're going to post, let's say 3 times. And so you can plan that ahead and think about the type of content you want to post, when you want to post it, and really be strategic and intentional about what you're going to do on these platforms. So this is the template that we have. We have one that's blank, of course, for you guys, but you can go through and number the months. It's undated. And so you can go through and say, let's say on this day, let's say we have just Facebook right now. So on Facebook, we're going to post a quote from the sermon that happened yesterday. And we're going to post it on Facebook. According to our analytics, we'll post it at 6 p.m. And you can write that on your schedule and kind of map it out so that you can go along with this strategy, not just day by day, but you can plan it out ahead and really put the content in order so that it's like, maybe once a week you post a quote, and maybe after that you'll post like a video or some photos and kind of have it sprinkled through that way so that it's a little bit more consistent and strategic. A couple other tips in terms of managing these social media platforms. The first one is to really centralize your accounts. And what we mean by that is that not one person in the church manages Facebook. They've signed up with their Gmail account, and then somebody else they manage the Instagram account, so the login is their email account, and it's all these different people managing all these different things. We want to be able to centralize these accounts. So you can use your general church address, like info@whatever the church is, or whatever it may be, for the login for the different accounts, so that everybody on the team in the church can be able to access that. You want to be able to store that login information in a confidential place. You want to do that so that everybody in the social media team or whoever's working on that in the church can access that information. So you all want to work together. So it's not just, let's say somebody gets locked out of the account. And it's like, well, I can't get in because that person signed up for the account, and the recovery email for resetting the password is their email address. So if I can't get the password, and we're all trying to work together, but it needs to be owned by the church. So we want to be able to use that consistent information so that everybody can work on it with the same login information, and it's the church email and password. So just briefly, we're almost to the end here. We're going to talk just briefly about analytics and reporting tools. Most social media platforms have, when I say native analytics, that means that when you're in that platform, they have their own analytics. So on Facebook, it's called Insights. So if you manage a tab, you can go to the top of the page. It's almost to the right side of the menu. It says Insights. And so you can look at how your posts are performing. You can look at which posts are getting the most engagement. You can look at which days of the week your audience is online the most, things like that. Twitter's analytics don't have as much information. Instagram analytics are really good. These other platforms have their own analytics as well. So most platforms have analytics within the account, but they don't all share the same type of information. So sometimes you want to use third-party tools. These are just a few different options for third-party tools that will share analytics, that will show you how your posts are performing, how your audience behaves, and things like that. Hootsuite is a good one because that does, well, a lot of them do, but we use Hootsuite, and it can help you schedule out your posts, and you can also use that to access some analytics for all of the platforms you've hooked up. So let's say you have a Facebook account plugged in on Hootsuite, you've connected a Twitter account and an Instagram account. You can look at the different analytics on Hootsuite for all of the platforms. So it's kind of a centralized aspect. One point that I wanted to bring up at this point is reach is different from engagement. When you're looking at the analytics, you might look at reach and say, wow, 500 people saw our post, that's really cool. But you really want to look for engagement. So reach is sometimes referred to as a vanity metric. It's just kind of for show. Like, it doesn't really tell you a whole lot. Let's say that 500 people saw your post. That means that when people are scrolling really fast on their phone, looking through their social media feed, that just means they scrolled by your post. They may not have even read it. It just says that it showed up on somebody's screen at some point in time. So what you really want to measure when you're looking at these analytics is engagement. You want to look at who's commenting, how many people are liking and sharing your post, people who are actually stopping when they're scrolling on their feed and doing something with your post. So who's actually interacting with you and interested in replying to your content. So these are a couple books that have really informed the different things that I talk about when it comes to social media. The New Rules of Marketing and PR is really beneficial because it talks about how we're no longer in the age of mass media, where in the past we can use a TV and share a message out to thousands of people, and that's the end of the story. But now it's about engaging and interacting with people. And we want to build that relationship two-way with them and with us, back and forth. Less Chaos, Less Noise is a book that talks about how to simplify our communication. And that's written by a lady named Kim Meyer. She has a lot of experience in church communication. So when we talk about this, we know that social media is meant to connect you with your audience. But it's not only to connect you so that that can be the end of the story. It's to connect you so that you can build a further relationship, so that you can continue to find out what are the needs that they have and how can we as a church meet them. So you don't only use social media, sometimes it's used as if it's mass media and we just share out a message and hope that people receive it and it's one way, but we want to use it as a two-way platform so that we can communicate back and forth. We can join conversations, make comments, share different content, and we want to get to know our audience. So summary as we wrap up. The first thing, like we talked about, start simple. We don't need to jump in to everything right away. We want to do what we can do, but do it well. Be strategic with the platforms that your church can manage right now. That's better than having a presence on all the platforms, but maybe only having some activity. It doesn't really reach as many people. We want to reach a lot of people with whichever platform we can manage at the time. Reach people where they already are, available to us on social media. We don't want to use social media as a crutch. We want to use social media to reach people with our message now, as they're in front of us, and not tell them that we want to introduce ourselves at a later time. We want to be mindful of context and look at the analytics and data that we have to be most successful and measure the connections that we're building rather than just the people who have seen our post, but the people who have actually shown the interest to engage with us.